Hello, this is Greg Allison from Green Greg's Garden and Worm Farm, coming to you from my home office. Today, I've come to you to explain the complexity of our modern society. In fact, it is so complex you can't believe it. Our society is more complex than you can even imagine, and it has been for many decades, and is amazingly more so today. And I'm going to illustrate this point with this number 2 pencil. Yes, this device is such a miracle with such complexity and coming to us that you wouldn't believe it. And in fact, to illustrate that, I'm going to read from a treatise written back in 1958, which was 61 years ago. So 61 years ago, the complexity of making a number 2 pencil was off the charts, unbelievable. So where are we at today with this? And what does that bode for the fragility of our society? Well, that's what I'm going to explain to you. So I'll explain the fragility, but first I'm going to go into reading a little treatise called A Pencil. And A Pencil is basically the description by a pencil, speaking in first person, telling you how it came into existence. And the assertion that no single person on earth, even way back 61 years ago, knew how to make a number 2 pencil, a device this simple yet complex. In our day and age of computers and internet, wow, and international shipping of everything back and forth, what does that mean today? What does this mean for our power grid and grid down and how we may or may not come back? So I'm going to go into all of that after I read this little treatise. And it's going to take a few minutes to read this, but it is an amazing read. In fact, it was written by a man named Reed, Leonard E. Reed. Imagine that. I can't make this stuff up, guys. Leonard E. Reed writes about something that makes things that you do read. I mean, it just gets funnier by the minute. But in any event, the story was shared to us with us, and how I found it was by a book called Freedom to Choose by Milton Friedman. And on the cover, he's holding a number 2 pencil. I read this book back in 1980. No, it's 1981 that I read it. And he was an economist of the conservative libertarian ilk. And you can find this treatise listed today in various websites. He used it in some of his shows, his book. Some libertarian type websites carry it. So it's quite a point. But before we get into that, I'd like to mention that if you like my videos, of course, hit like, hit the subscribe button to see all the other videos I produce about prepping, grid down, gardening, foraging off the land, many topics I cover, homesteading, and also to support my channel, please look below on the links below. You can buy prepping supplies from My Patriot Supply. You can buy seeds. It's planting time. Go to Tree Leaf Market and buy heirloom seeds. That's what you need so you can replant and survive. If the grid goes down and you're buying hybrid seeds, forget it. You ain't got nothing next year. Keep the heirloom seeds, Tree Leaf Market. And also, if you want to grow a garden, you want to be able to grow your own stuff without having to go to the store to buy fertilizers. You got to make your own from compost. I sell worms, greengregs.com. Link below. In any event, so I'll get into this. Here we go. And you have to excuse me, I'll be scrolling along a little bit through this. I'm looking at a Word document here to read this. A little more complex than I can recite from memory, although I can talk about it from memory. A Pencil. Simple though I appear to be, merit your wonder and awe. As I claim, I shall attempt to prove, in fact, that if you can understand me, no, that's too much to ask of anyone. If you can become aware of the miraculousness, funny words, which I symbolize, you can help save the freedom of mankind is so unhappily losing. I have a profound lesson to teach, and I can teach this lesson better than can an automobile or an airplane or mechanical dishwasher because, well, I am seemingly so simple. Simple, yet Not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me. This sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Especially when it's realized that there are about 1.5 billion of my kind produced in the United States each year. Well, you got to remember, this was written when we produced stuff in the United States. I don't know who makes pencils today, but I digress. Let me get back to the read. Pick me up and look me over. What do you see? Not so much meets the eye. There's just some wood, lacquer, a printed label, graphite, lead, a bit of metal, and an eraser. Yeah. Okay, now here comes the scrolling part. Ching, 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 ching. Just as you cannot trace your family tree back very far, so it's impossible for me to name and explain all of my antecedents. But I would like to suggest enough of them to impress upon you the richness and complexity of my background. My family tree begins with what in fact is a tree, a cedar of straight grain that grows in Northern California and Oregon. Now contemplate all the saws and trucks and rope and countless other gear used in the harvesting and carting of the cedar logs to the railroad siding. Think of all the persons and the numberless skills that went into their fabrication, the mining of ores, the making of steel, and the refinement of saws and axes and motors, the growing of hemp, and bringing it through all the stages to the heavy and strong rope and logging camps, with their beds and mess halls and cookery, and the raising of all their foods. Why, untold thousands of persons had a hand in every cup of coffee that the loggers drink. Thank God, I love coffee. The logs are shipped to a mill in San Leonardo. I'm sure I'm murdering that. This is not a town I know, and who knows if it even exists or has a mill anymore. Remember, this was written 61 years ago. Okay, but let's go with it. In San Leonardo, California. Can you imagine the individuals who make the flat cars and the rails and the railroad engines, and who construct and install the communication system? Boy, they didn't know anything about communications back then, did they? Incidental there too. These legions are among my antecedents. All right, more scrolling. Consider the millwork in San Leonardo. The cedar logs are cut into small pencil-length slats less than 1/4 of an inch in thickness. These are kiln dried and then tinted for the same reason that women put rouge upon their faces. People prefer that I look pretty, not a pallid white. Yeah. The slats are waxed and kiln dried again. How many skills went into making the tint and the kilns, into supplying the heat and the light and the power, the belts and the motors and all the other things a mill requires? Sweepers in the mill among my ancestors? Yes, and included are the men who poured the concrete for the dam of the Pacific Gas and Electric Company hydro plant, which supplies the mill's power. Yeah, PG&E maybe not so popular these days, but that's another story. Don't overlook the ancestors, present and distant, who have had a hand in transporting 60 carloads of slats across the nation. Yeah, imagine we have a lot bigger nation today. Scrolling. Maybe more pencils coming from somewhere. Pardon me. Once in the pencil factory, $4 million in machinery and buildings, all capital accumulated by thrifty and saving parents of mine. 4 million, yeah, probably 40 million today, or 100 million, I don't know. Each slat is given 8 grooves by a complex machine, after which another machine lays lead in every other slat, applies glue, and places another slat on top. A lead sandwich, so to speak. 7 brothers and I are mechanically carved from this wood clinched sandwich. My lead itself contains no lead at all. It's complex. The graphite is mined in Ceylon, Sri Lanka today. Consider the miners and those who make their mini tools, and the makers of the paper sacks in which the graphite is shipped, and those who make the strings that tie the sacks, and those that put them aboard ships, and those who make the ships, even the lighthouse keepers along the way who assisted in my birth, and the harbor pilots. Well, all those paper sacks are probably plastic today, and they probably have wire ties, or who knows. more complex than paper sacks, right? Okay, the graphite is mixed with clay from Mississippi, in which ammonium hydroxide is used in the refining process. Then wetting agents are added, such as sulfonated tallow, animal fats, chemically reacted with sulfuric acid. Wow. After passing through numerous machines, a mixture finally appears as an endless extrusions from a sausage grinder, cut to size, dried, and baked for several hours at 1850 degrees Fahrenheit. To increase their strength and smoothness, the leads are then treated with a hot mixture, which includes candelia wax from Mexico, paraffin wax, and hydrogenated natural fats. Sounds like margarine. Don't eat that stuff. My cedar, my cedar receives 6 coats of lacquer. Do you know all the ingredients of lacquer? Who would think that the growers of castor beans and the refiners of castor oil are part of it? They are. Why even the processes by which the lacquer is made a beautiful yellow involve the skills of more persons than one can enumerate. Observe the labeling. Here we are. Observe the labeling. That's a film formed by applying heat to carbon black mixed with the resins. How do you make the resins? And what, pray, is carbon black? My bed of metal, the ferrule, is brass. Think of all the persons who mine the zinc and the copper and who have the skills to make shiny sheet brass from these products of nature. Those black rings of my ferrule are black nickel. Well, this particular pencil don't have that, but I've seen them with it. Scrolling. What is black nickel and how is it applied? The complete story of why the center of my ferrule has no black nickel, but take pages to explain. Well, in this case, I'm going to skip that chapter. Then there's my crowning glory, and elegantly referred to in the trade as the plug. The part man uses to erase the errors he makes with me, and in an ingredient called Sanitize is what does the erasing. It's a rubber-like product made by reacting rapeseed oil from the Dutch East Indies, there today Indonesia, with sulfur chloride. Rubber, contrary to the popular notion, is only for binding purposes. Then, too, there are numerous vulcanization and accelerating agents. The pumice comes from Italy, and the pigment which gives the plug its color is cadmium sulfide. Wow, who would have thought? How do you get that stuff? Scrolling. Does anyone wish to challenge my earlier assertion that not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me? Actually, millions of human beings have had a hand in my creation. No one of whom even knows more than a few of the others. Now, you may say that I have gone too far in relating the picker of the coffee berry in far off Brazil and the food growers elsewhere for my creation, that this is an extreme position. I stand by my claim. There isn't a single person in all these millions, including the president of the pencil company, contributes more than a tiny infinitesimal bit of know-how. From the standpoint of know-how, the only difference between the miner of graphite in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, of course, and the logger in Oregon is the type of know-how. Each of the miner nor the logger can be dispensed with any more than can the chemist in the factory, the worker in the oil field, paraffin being a byproduct of petroleum. Here's an astounding fact. Neither the worker in the oil field, nor the chemist, nor the digger of graphite clay, nor the man who makes the ships or trains or trucks, nor any one who runs the machine that does the curling from my bed of metal, nor the president of the company performs his singular task because he wants me. Each wants me less, perhaps, than does the child in first grade. Indeed, there are some among this vast multitude who never saw a pencil or know how to use one. Their motivations, their motivation is other than me. Perhaps it's something like this. Each of the millions see that he can exchange his tiny bit of know-how for goods and services that he needs. I may or may not be among these items. There's still a more astonishing fact. The absence of a mastermind, of anyone dictating or forcibly directing these countless actions which bring me into being. No trace of such a person can be found. Instead, we find the invisible hand at work. This is a mystery to which I referred to earlier. So at this point, I'm going to quit reading this treatise. It goes on and on quite a bit. And it's a treatise that really builds into the case for free markets and a lot of things like that. That was the direction under which this was written. But it illustrates a point to me, and it should illustrate a point to the prepper and technical community of our world today, that everything, every little artifact we have on our planet that we use in our daily lives comes to us through an incredibly complex network. Even 61 years ago, this was the case, to make something so simple as this innocent seeming little number 2 pencil. Today, everything is coordinated by the internet, by computers and server banks, with spreadsheets and software developed all over the country, people coordinating, servers everywhere, the power to run all of that, the technology to make the microchips in the computers and servers, the growth of silicon crystals, the slicing of them, the masking, the printing of the circuits, the cutting out the chips and encapsulating them and putting pins on them and putting them on boards, and all the stuff moves, and everything today moves around the world back and forth several times. We may mine something here, send it to China, they send it back here, and then we send it back over there, and then it comes back. Who knows? Stuff just moves around all over the world, and it's all coordinated by satellites and directing the flow and communications from ship to shore. Satellites that require rockets to launch them, that require, rocket scientists. The rocket scientists go now and to make it a number 2 pencil. Well, I suppose so. And computer scientists and software engineers. It's high, And what's at the core of the computer chip? A transistor. A transistor is a device that uses quantum theory in its operation to move charge across the what we call an NP junction inside the transistor, and that's what relatively negative and positive doping aspects in the transistor itself. I'm not going to go into all that and how you do Boolean logic and ones and zeros are approximated by off and on states of these switches. But there you are, how you design the computers, all that. However, suffice it to say, our world today is many orders of complexity greater than it was 61 years ago when Leonard E. Read wrote the book about a device that writes. iPencil. Nice little treatise, very interesting. However, what I want to say is this. If our grid goes down, we lose all of that. You lose the networks, you lose the communications, you lose the logistics. And if it's been estimated that 9 out of 10 people would die within a year in America without the grid, I'm going to make a case in a future video based on what I find about farmers not having gardens and other things like that, that it's going to be very much worse than that. But when you lose the great swath of skill sets, the interconnectivity, how do you put Humpty Dumpty back together again? Our society is a Humpty Dumpty. It's a big egg sitting on a wall, perched and all ready to fall. And all the king's horses and all the king's men will not put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Yeah, king's horses, that's a good analogy, with the hoofs trying to put together eggshells into some creation. They're slightly lacking in dexterity to do such a task, right? But that's where we're at today. We're lacking in dexterity to put our society back together after it takes a big fall. And there's so many ways our society can fall today. There's a lot of threats in our world today. The tensions in the military sphere are really ramping up right now. The economics are not good. There are many things that I've cited in previous videos that could bring down our power grid. And it's not just a case, okay, we lose all this complexity, we lose society, we'll lose our number 2 pencils. Okay, fine, Greg, who cares? Yeah, well, they also got these spent fuel rod pools at the nuclear power plants. Just in the United States alone, at over 100 plants, they have over 74,000 metric tons of spent fuel rods sitting in them that are clad in zirconium alloy that burns on contact with air when hot, because it's been enriched inside the reactor with oxygen and hydrogen and other things, so that all that 74,000 metric tons of stuff just can go up in the atmosphere. And that is 280 times more material than all the warheads on Earth. So, you know, before people say, oh, I live on a farm, I can survive. Really? Really? This much stuff floating around the atmosphere? And then if you could survive, you know, you got to worry about the zombies, not the ones from the city. You got to worry about the zombies from your neighbors, the farms, because they're not growing gardens. They're the ones going to be knocking on your door first. The guys from the city may never make it out to you. I don't know. Maybe they will. They'll try to, depending on how far you are from the city. And I'll probably do another video about the zombies from the farms. That would be a good one. Farm zombies. So, yeah, I laugh today. It may not be so funny in the future, but I'm not afraid. I teach you in my videos that to have no fear, to instead of being afraid, be prepared. Don't be scared, be prepared as much as you can, and just deal with it as it comes. There's ways you can be prepared. And again, you know, learn the skills. They can't take what's in your head from you. They can't take the skills you've learned. And I'm showing you how to eat from the yard, from the fields. You know, I'll be showing you how to forage from the forest where there's food. I'm teaching you why gardening is crucial. I'm teaching you key aspects about gardening. Yeah, there's tons of videos that talk about gardening, but I'm telling you the key things that you'll need to know in a grid down situation, because you can't go buy stuff. You got to know how to make your own. And I'll be covering a lot more stuff on gardening throughout the year and the years to come, hopefully, if we have those. But the tensions in the world today are very high. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the world stage. 5 U.S. aircraft carrier groups are on immediate deployment right now as I speak. The nations of Venezuela and Iran. And I hope that don't cause me a problem with the powers that be here that run algorithms talking about such things, because I'm totally for resolving things, because we don't need what we're looking at. Topic for another video. But in any event, suffice it to say, we're far more fragile than we think. Think about it, all the docks that are required on ocean sides for all this stuff. What if an asteroid hits the ocean, for Pete's sake? And then all the ports in that ocean get wiped out. Pacific Ocean is almost half the Earth. It's a huge collector area for an asteroid strike. An asteroid strikes that ocean, and if all the ports around the ocean get wiped out, that wipes out international trade practically, except just the Atlantic maybe. You know how much stuff gets traded in the Pacific Ocean? Wow. How do we operate when all those people and all the skill sets and all the infrastructure is gone? So, and here's the other thing. The resources that we use today are resources that we mine in the parts per million, oftentimes with aluminum and such things. And with the technology we have, it's fine. We got plentiful aluminum and other assets like that when we mine it that way. Copper, for example, but and oil. Well, we got to go out in the ocean now in many cases, where you got to put your bit 3 miles down, and then you drill for another 2 or 3 miles into the hot crust of the earth, where the pressures are insanely high and temperatures are insanely high, and then we're pulling oil out of that. That's some of the stuff we're doing to get oil today. Well, once upon a time, somebody could go into Pennsylvania or Iraq or many other places and stick a stick in the ground and pull it out, and up become oil oozing, you know, kind of like Jed Clampett and the Beverly Hillbillies. You know, it takes a shot and up comes bubbling crude. Shooting for some food and up comes bubbling crude. You know, that was the line in the song, right? But that was the way it used to be. You used to pick ore up right off the ground, good copper ore and different things like that. How much good copper ore are you just going to be picking up off the top of the ground? Enough to run our industrial civilization? Yeah, we'll mine the derelict of our civilization perhaps for a while. That may be part of the solution. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how we get back to where we're at. You know, you might say, well, Greg, you know, well, people will come back and, you know, we'll relearn it, we'll build the skill sets, and we'll get back to it. I don't know if we can. You know, it's a Humpty Dumpty. Civilization breaks. What do you do? I hope we can keep civilization from breaking. That's the first thing we need to try to do. Is that an impossible task? I mean, Humpty Dumpty's on that wall and he's teeter-tottering, ready for a fall. That's a fact. A lot of people have a hard time seeing that. And if he falls, bad news, really bad news, horribly bad news. I'm going to tell you something. You think that even the elites can make it through this? They think so? I don't. They'll be the last ones to make it because they don't have the proper skill sets. They may have money, they may have a head start, but it ain't going to last them forever. So, people who watch this channel, you're the ones most likely to succeed because you're developing the skill sets it's going to take to survive. And we're going to go through more and more of these. So be prepared, not scared. We're going to make it through this. I first hope that we can find the ways to prevent it. But if not, we just got to figure out how to get through it. And yeah, I do have interest in different home technology and the building of communities and tribes, because by our nature, we are tribal beings. We are of that nature. Our modern world and society is fractured as chasing jaws. We're no longer with extended families. We don't even know the neighbor next door anymore. Our community and tribe is the people of like interests we meet on the internet. Well, we're going to have a community and tribe of like-minded people that all live next to each other at some point in time. Maybe we'll use the internet then to coordinate our work at a distance. That might be a better way. Even as long as the technological age asks, and then have 3D printers in the house or whatever you need to manufacture the higher tech stuff and other means of building things as you want them, handmade or whatever. Anybody want to try making a number 2 pencil? Sure, you can assemble the final pieces. So this idea that nobody knows how to make a number 2 pencil doesn't say you couldn't assemble the final pieces, but truly, nobody knows everything involved and how to bring it all into fruition from the dirt up. And especially we're trying to figure out how to grow trees and the biological DNA aspects of that. But still, Mother Nature will always have a lot of the keys and locked away in her vast reserve of knowledge. And that said, I think I made my point here. I hope I have, that our society is incredibly more fragile than we would even imagine. It's like a giant Humpty Dumpty with a very thin shell, teetering and tottering, ready to fall. So let's hope that don't happen. Let's work and strive to try to keep things glued together, because it's going to be a lot worse than you imagine when he falls. It's going to be a very ugly situation. And but you that are prepared, especially mentally, spiritually, and however, are the best ones to make it through it. Yeah, go ahead and buy prepping supplies. They will help. They'll help get you the good head start. But the key thing is right here. It's the knowledge, the skills, and what's in your heart. The fire, the intent to live, to survive, to thrive, and not be a part of the hive. That's what I call for. Have it in your heart. Don't go along with the crowd and like a bunch of lemons going over the sea. Yeah, there's going to be a huge push to get everybody herded into certain mindsets that are not sustainable, that will not lead to your surviving. So if you're going along with the crowd, you're going down with the crowd. Just think about that. But in any event, I'm here to help you, and I appreciate you watching. And again, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, bang the update notification bell, much more to come. Thank you all for watching, and